Before we had content warnings, we had these movies, now burned into our memories for all the wrong reasons. Let's go from the least to the most traumatizing. Number 1. The Land Before Time. This is an animated adventure family film released in 1988. After his mother is killed by a vicious predator, a young brontosaurus follows her final directions to find the Great Valley, where others of his kind live. He teams up with other young dinosaurs to make the dangerous journey. Along the way, they face many challenges while being pursued by the same predator that took his mother's life. This is similar to Bambi and Dumbo because it's extremely sad. I mean, if you can remember the big shadow scene, it's the one that probably takes the cake. And it's heartbreaking, so in that sense, it's a traumatizing film. And I haven't seen it in maybe 20 years. I wonder how I would feel now. Number 2. The NeverEnding Story. This is a fantasy movie from 1984 based on the 1979 novel of the same name. A boy avoids bullies by hiding in a bookstore where he secretly takes a mysterious book and reads it in his school attic. The story follows a fantasy land which is being consumed by a dark force and needs a human child's help. When the boy sees himself described in the book, he starts to question if Fantasia is real. This one belongs to a very specific category of movies, and I think I'll make a dedicated video for all the others because they are dark fantasy films from the 80s. And some people I asked about the trauma related to this movie mentioned the wolf, which was scary, and others were shocked by the horse scene. I mean, we all watched it and we had no clue what was going to happen because movies back then didn't have content warnings. Number 3. E.T. The Extra-Terrestrial. This is a science fiction movie from 1982. A young boy befriends a stranded alien and hides it in his home with the help of his siblings. As they grow closer to the creature, they realize it needs their assistance. The boy must find the courage to do what's necessary to protect his new friend. I have to admit that it takes a while to get used to the alien on the screen, but we normally end up caring for it. And I know more than one person who finds this movie scary from beginning to end because of how E.T. looks like. And if you've seen the knockoff of E.T., which is called Mac and Me, you were probably shocked by the tall aliens as well. And in my head, these two movies are merged because I must have watched them in the same period, and I really struggled distinguishing the two plots and even the characters. And I was wondering, am I the only one who doesn't really know how to distinguish them other than for the aliens, which are quite distinct? Let me know if you watched both movies and if you have the same problem. Number 4. The Black Cauldron. This is an animated dark fantasy adventure film released in 1985 and loosely based on a series of books which are in turn based on Welsh mythology. A young pig herder dreams of becoming a knight. When an evil tyrant kidnaps a magical pig, Taran and his friends race to find a powerful dark item before it falls into the wrong hands. Along the way, they must stop the tyrant from unleashing an army of the undead. This is probably the darkest of Disney's releases, and it nearly ruined the whole company. Back when we watched it at home, I just remember that it was odd. Like, we felt that it was different from the other movies and we weren't aware which company had produced it. And honestly, I don't really remember the scary parts. I mean, I've seen images online, but I don't remember my reaction as a kid. And I still wanted to include this here because others on the internet told me that they were truly traumatized. And in a way, it's similar to Fantasia, which had a couple of scary pieces, but it's from the 1940s, so it's way older. And it's not necessarily something that we watched as 90s or 80s kids. Number 5, Jumanji. This is a fantasy adventure from 1995 based on a 1981 children's picture book. While exploring an old mansion, two siblings discover a magical board game called Jumanji. As they play, they release a man trapped in the game for decades and face a world of dangerous creatures. To free the man and stop the chaos, they must finish the game. This, to me, is just like Jurassic Park, except it's not as scary. But I mean, all those who watched it as kids will remember the drums. And I think I wouldn't touch the board game, just in case. I wanted to include Jurassic Park here because I rewatched it recently and I realized that it's a horror. I have no idea how and why we watched it as kids, but luckily my memories didn't really include those scary scenes. All I could remember was the very beginning and the amber scene, and that was it. Let me give you a few honorable mentions of movies that I either have not watched or that I didn't find really scary or traumatizing, but that other people on Threads, who thank you for contributing, said that they found traumatizing. And let me know in the comments if you watched any of these and if you found them scary in a way. And if they scarred you, let me know why. Watership Down, Poltergeist, Salem's Lot, The Black Hole, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, The Omen, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Saturn 3, An American Werewolf in London, Threads, Nightmare on Elm Street, and feel free to add yours down in the comments. Number 6, Gremlins. This is a black comedy horror released in 1984 and loosely based on folkloric mischievous creatures named Gremlins that used to call malfunctions in the British Royal Air Force back in World War II. A man buys a mysterious creature as a gift for his son, with strict instructions to avoid bright light, water, and feeding it after midnight. When he accidentally breaks these rules, a group of mischievous gremlins is unleashed on the town. Chaos ensues as the gremlins wreak havoc on Christmas Eve. Since this is a Christmas movie, I decided to rewatch it this Christmas. But I was definitely not prepared for what I saw, because all I could remember when it comes to Gremlins was, this image of the plushes that were sold in the 90s. And as I was thinking about this video, I checked, and I think in my memories, I merged the Gremlins with Furby. And since those were cute, I probably associated those to the movie and thought that it would be a nice movie to watch. But I mean, there are a few scenes that are definitely not what I would expect, especially the one in the movie theater. I was so surprised they included something like that. Number 7, The Witches. This is a dark fantasy comedy horror released in 1990 based on the 1983 novel of the same name by Roald Dahl. While staying at a hotel with his grandmother, a young boy accidentally discovers a convention of witches. He learns of their evil plan to transform children, but soon finds himself in great danger. He must figure out how to stop their wicked plot before it's too late. Even the book was scary, and yet it was made for children. And in 2020 I watched the new adaptation, and I believe it's just as scary, especially the faces of the witches. Damn, I cannot look even at the pictures that I see online. Plus, who doesn't find scary the whole idea of being chased, It's one of those recurring nightmares for me. Number 8, It. This is a psychological horror drama released in 1990 and based on the 1986 novel of the same name by Stephen King. In 1960, a group of bullied outcasts face an evil demon that takes the form of a child-killing clown. 30 years later, they reunite to stop the demon when it returns to their hometown. The friends must confront their past fears to defeat the shape-shifting creature once and for all. I didn't realize, but this is a 2-part miniseries. I thought it was a movie for some reason. And so many of us were scarred by this story. And I don't know about you, but I still fear clowns. I mean, I even feel uneasy when a circus is part of a movie, and I'm not sure if it's just a result of it or if I simply despise the circus in itself. I don't know. But I'm also unable to watch horror without consequences. This is one of the reasons why I haven't watched some of the movies I mentioned that people named on Threads, because those were horror movies and it's clear even from the poster. So I don't really know why I watched this, probably with some friends, because I wouldn't have chosen to watch it myself. And I believe this happened with The Crow as well, because as any people pleaser, I simply accepted watching something that made me uncomfortable just to make other people happy, you know? And sometimes I wonder how we collectively accepted some of the stories written by Stephen King. I mean, no matter how disturbing, if he wrote them, then it's fine. I don't know. Number 9, A Clockwork Orange. This is a dystopian crime film released in 1971 and based on a 1962 novel of the same name. In a decaying future, Alex and his friends spend their nights indulging in violence and chaos. After being jailed for a brutal crime, Alex undergoes a behavior modification treatment to earn his freedom. Returning to society, he faces the consequences of his past actions. I don't know if you remember when I talked about Malcolm McDowell in my time travel recommendations video. This movie is probably why I find him scary as an actor in general, except for that film I mentioned in that video. And this, again, I watched it only because some friends decided that it was the movie of the day, you know? I despise it. I wish I could erase those memories. Awful, awful movie. I mean, I'm not talking about the cinematography, you know? I'm talking about the trauma. Number 10, Return to Oz. This is a dark fantasy film released in 1985, and it's an unofficial sequel to the adaptation of the Oz novels. Now, I'm bending my own rules for this one, because I decided not to give you the plot summary, for one reason only. I simply cannot bear, I cannot handle any clips, any images, anything related to this movie is triggering to me. This tells you how traumatized I am. One thing specifically, the guys with the wheels. I mean, I can hear them if I hear a similar noise, or even in my imagination. So if I start thinking about the images of the movie, I can hear them. You know what I mean? It's awful, even now. I'm really uncomfortable. So this movie is probably the reason why I tend to avoid any Oz retelling, not for the story itself, but for the trauma. Please let me know if you are as terrified as I am by this movie. There was also someone mentioning the heads that were switched, you know? That's another scene. Yeah, this really takes the cake for me. Which is the absolute worst for you? Let me know in the comments. And now that you watched this, check out the video on the screen that I recommend you watch next. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss my upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.